Have you ever wondered what you'd do if the person you trusted most betrayed you? Meet Jack, a hard-working father who built his life on loyalty and commitment, only to find his wife, Charlene, living a double life with her lover. Faced with financial and emotional turmoil, Jack navigates a web of deceit, cunningly turning the tables on Charlene while protecting his daughters and securing his future. This is not just a story of betrayal, it's a gripping tale of resilience, strategy, and ultimate redemption. Stay tuned to discover how one man reclaims control and ensures justice is served. I always believed in the sanctity of hard work and commitment. Growing up in a household where loyalty was everything, I carried those values into my adulthood. As the son of a steelworker and a teacher, I saw firsthand the sacrifices my parents made for our family. They taught me that relationships, much like the bridges my father built, required a strong foundation and constant maintenance. When I met Valerie, I thought I had found someone who shared those principles. We fell in love quickly, moved into a modest home, and built a life together. Over time, that life grew. First with our 2 daughters, then with the business I poured my soul into. It wasn't always easy, but I never doubted the strength of our bond. At least, not until the cracks began to show. Supporting her financially was less of a strain than enduring the alternative. Owning my own company meant alimony was a certainty if she wasn't working. While my daughters were the most important part of my life, the looming financial burden threatened to limit the time I could spend with them. To make matters worse, there was a possibility she could claim half of my business, leaving me to survive on less than a third of my earnings. I left the lawyer's office feeling defeated. Valerie was already ahead of me, and when I caught up, she said, "I've been doing this for 8 months and it hasn't hurt us. Hank is a great lover, just different," she added. "I don't know who I'd choose, but think before you act. Go see a lawyer. If we break up, it'll be hell, and I'll make sure of it." I stared at her, trying to process who she was. This wasn't the woman I'd trusted for 14 years. At least I wouldn't have to sneak around anymore. "You'll still get most of my time," she said, "but I won't ignore Hank. I'll figure out a schedule." I got up and left. She followed me to the street, but went quiet when she saw Mrs. Woodson. I smiled and nodded, and Valerie hissed, "Get over here now!" As I walked away, I thought about everything she'd said. After 2 days, I came back to a smug look on her face. The girls, now 13 and 11, were thrilled to see me, and I spent the evening with them. After they went to bed, Valerie brought me a beer, but I didn't want anything from her anymore. "I'm glad you came to your senses," she said. "We'll live like before, but I'll have dates sometimes. No one will know." I couldn't hold back anymore. "Here's what's happening," I said. "I'm staying until Melissa turns 18, then I'm gone. Erica will be fine, and maybe she'll come live with me. Either way, I'm out." I paused, then continued. "I'm done with you. I won't sleep with you again. You've turned into someone else. I'm moving into a spare room, and I'm not talking about this again. I'll have my own life, and if I meet someone, so be it. But you need a job, or Hank better pay your way. The girls will get everything they need, but no more joint accounts." Her face went pale, then furious. "You're an a-hole," she spat. "I still love you and want to be with you. This is crazy." "Things already have changed," I said. "Now go to bed." She shot back, "If your mistress doesn't work out, you'll be popular at Oak and Main. You might want to think about that." Later, I caught her on the phone with her lover. I grabbed the phone and said, "I have your number. I'll get your address, and we'll talk about what we have in common. Don't worry about me hurting you, but you won't want a relationship with her knowing she cheats." I hung up and pocketed the phone. Valerie didn't say a word when the girls walked in and asked what was wrong with the door. "Just moisture," I said. "I'll fix it tomorrow." When the kids left, I stopped Valerie from going to bed. "I'm keeping your phone until tomorrow, and I'll be checking your account. Good night." She hissed, "Good luck." "Thanks," I replied, knowing she had no idea I'd set up a keystroke logger on the computer. Soon I had all her emails, search history, and purchases from the last year. She was too careless. Her lover worked for the county as a permit checker. They met when Valerie came to get a permit to build my workshop, really my man cave. When the estrogen levels at home got too high, I'd retreat there, playing pool or watching sports. She had to return a few times for follow-ups, which turned into flirting, coffee, and lunches. I locked up all the evidence, sent the files to my office computer, and went to bed. I slept surprisingly well. In the morning, I made breakfast as the girls chatted about school and boys. They were obsessed with boy bands, and I barely paid attention. Thankfully, they were still too young for anything serious. Melissa, now 13, was starting to get noticed by boys, so we let her walk with friends, supervised by one of us. We hoped this would help them avoid doing anything stupid when they were old enough to date. Erica, or Ricky, as we called her, was too young for that. But we made sure she had plenty of supervised social time between sports, dance, band, and drama. I dropped the first bombshell at breakfast. Sorry, girls, but I have new responsibilities at work. Mom will be your main driver for now. Since she's not working, she'll have the time. Valerie tried to argue, but the girls quickly sided with me. They didn't want to ride with their friends, especially after some uncomfortable experiences. Valerie didn't give up easily, but I knew it would be a pattern. Her lover's visits happened mostly during the day after the girls were off to school. If you think this is over, I said to Valerie, you're wrong, and it's not a mistake I'm making. I've wired the house for sound and video. Get your lover in here, and it'll be online within the hour. She was still talking when I left. I watched the video footage of her freaking out, searching for the hidden cameras. It was entertaining. I also overheard several phone conversations, including one with her lover. He sounded uncomfortable when she vented. He's ruining everything. He canceled all my cards, and our bank balance is down to $280. The electric bill is due today. We may have to go to Plan B. Her lover wanted to wait. If we leave now, we'll be broke, and everyone will know why. Let's take it slow, live in nice houses, and keep this secret a little longer. Valerie wasn't happy with that. So much for love, she muttered. Later, she tried to make plans to meet him at his place, but he refused, worried about the house being wired. I believe him, he said. We can't risk it. When their conversation ended, she sat looking confused. She'd hoped for the perfect life, but reality was quickly catching up. I checked on her later, and she was at the computer, realizing I'd locked her out. Fool, she yelled, coming up with every curse she could think of. I called her just to tease. Hi, honey, I said, dripping sarcasm. You're having a great day, I see. Your computer's locked up tighter than Fort Knox, and your phone's about to be disconnected. But don't worry, I ordered you a new one. It'll be here tomorrow. You fool, she yelled again, but I hung up before she could say more. I overheard the rest of the details through the surveillance system my tech-savvy friend had set up while Valerie was with her lover that night. When I gave her a new, best-in-class phone, she smiled. The next day, I heard her frustration as she tried to use it. The phone had a safety feature for kids, which worked out perfectly for me. The only numbers she could call were the school, my office, our doctors, her mother, my parents, and emergency. Any attempt to dial another number would disconnect the call for 30 seconds before rebooting. She discovered this when she tried calling her lover. Once it rebooted, I called her. Hey, I said. Guess you figured out the phone only works with preset numbers. It's hard to reach your sweetheart without a phone or computer, isn't it? I'd apologize, but unlike you, I don't lie. Here's a suggestion. Get a job. You'll need one if you want to shop. I'll take care of the kids, but you're on your own for everything else. Maybe now you'll wear those clothes with the tag still on. I hung up before she could respond. When I got home, things were cold. She struggled to keep it together around the girls, but once they were asleep, we went to the basement. She screamed and threatened me. but I just smirked. Then she switched tactics and started crying. Please stop being mean. I didn't do it on purpose. He's just a fling. I'll go back to loving you. It didn't hurt you before, and it won't now. It's only a few hours a week. The rest of the time, I'm all yours. Come to bed with me tonight and let me prove I still love you. I laughed. You know, I looked online for excuses for cheating. There's even a book called The Cheater's Handbook with advice on handling affairs. You've used a lot of the excuses in it. It just happened. It won't affect us. It's only an affair. And the best part? Threatening to destroy his world if he doesn't agree. She looked conflicted, but before she could respond, I went on. Let's say I agree to your plan. What do I get? I still pay the bills and do all the work, but now I have to share you with someone else. As a businessman, that's not a good deal. You get to have fun with him and I just work and wait. That's not happening. Since you've declared an open marriage, I'll be looking too. There's a sales rep I've been talking to. She's into fitness and runs marathons. Next time she comes in, I'll ask her to lunch. I'll explain we have an open marriage, and you've had a lover for almost a year now. She seems pretty open-minded.
I could tell that jab about her weight stung. After 2 kids, she was a little softer than when we first met, but that was on her. If she got off the couch and went to the gym instead of shopping, maybe things would be different. She looked shocked. Why? Why do you need someone else when I'm right here? I still love you. The thought of you being with someone else hurts me, I responded coolly. I've been free for 16 years, but that wasn't enough for you, was it? Do you think I was thrilled when I found out you were cheating? There's a name for guys who let their wives have fun with others while they stay faithful, just like there's a name for women who do the same. The promiscuous Bite Express is officially derailed. Think about that. I'm going to bed. At least one of us has to work. She hissed at me as I left. I knew I needed a plan before she really tried to ruin my life. I reached out to an old friend, Daniel, our neighbor's son, who was socially awkward but brilliant with computers. He had been developing games since he was 14 and had made a fortune by his 30s. Now he lived with his wife in a mansion worth millions. She was stunning but not the sharpest tool in the shed. I had introduced them a few years ago at one of my parties. At the party, Daniel had announced his engagement to Laura, the daughter of one of my biggest clients. She was drop-dead gorgeous but a bit naive. Daniel had been a shy, quiet guy, but after meeting her, he finally proposed. Their wedding was set for June 17th at Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Broadville. He looked at her with a proud smile, and she took his hand as he made the announcement. Valerie didn't mention the details right away, but she told Daniel the type of ring she wanted, and the next day he gave her a credit card. She took it from there. They'd been together 8 years, and their daughter, Stella, was 7. My girls adored her like a little sister. It wasn't unusual for me to come home and see Laura's SUV in the driveway with the driver, chatting with Valerie. Laura's personal assistant, Naomi, a former military woman, was tough, attractive, and highly skilled. She had black belts in 3 martial arts and was a top pistol shooter. At one point, she worked for me, but I could tell she was bored. One day, Laura dropped by to discuss a social event. I was in a meeting, so Naomi kept her company. By the time I finished, I'd lost an employee to Laura, another win for them. Naomi ended up living in a small apartment at their mansion, separate from Daniel and Laura's main house. But when a hijacker tried to snatch one of their children, Naomi shot him in the head. After a brief investigation, she was cleared of any wrongdoing. From then on, she became Stella's bodyguard. My girls sometimes vacationed with them, but Valerie always found an excuse for us to stay behind. Continue as KBH characters change Karkido. Discuss the situation. What exactly do you want? Jack, he asked. I want my girls in my life above all, and I want her to regret what she did. It's over between us, but she doesn't realize it yet. When she does, I want to make sure I'm financially secure. I replied. Harry asked about the house. We bought it at a steep discount, around 60% of its market value, due to its elderly owner neglect. We'd invested a lot in restoring it, and now it was worth twice what we'd spent. Charlene would fight for it after the divorce. Charlene suggested I remodel the basement into an apartment with separate wiring and a driveway, creating a space where I could have my own life and still see the kids. She believed it would be an easy sell in court since the girls would be involved. Shanana suggested another option. I can handle this. I'll make their lives miserable for you, no problem. I didn't want to go down that road, though. Letting stick to plan C, I said. Shanana wasn't thrilled but agreed before leaving. She warned she's got a thing for you. Now, Jack, watch out when you're single. I was surprised. I always liked Shanana, but I didn't realize she had feelings for me. The house was in my name, which worked out since I was the primary earner. After consulting with contractors and a lawyer, I decided to remodel the basement. I also set up an allowance for Charlene, just enough for her to go out, but not unlimited spending. I took her Mercedes in for repairs and installed a GPS system with remote shutdown capabilities. I noticed Charlene's lunch breaks were getting longer. She'd go out with friends, then sneak off to her lover's house for a couple of hours one day. I followed her GPS, and when she headed to his place, I turned off her car. She called in a panic, saying the car wouldn't start when I asked where she was. She told me she was across town. She claimed she was stopping by a friend's to get her bag from their shopping trip. I let her sweat for a moment, then told her to try starting the car again. She did, and drove a few blocks before it stalled again when she finally made it home. She realized what was happening later. I recorded a screaming match between her and Marissa, our daughter, where Charlene kicked her out of the room. The sight of our daughter hurt her, but it was too late when she asked about the basement. I told her I was setting it up for the girls. She thought that meant I was okay with her affair. Charlene bought a new phone, which I planted to track her on it. Turned out she and her lover were planning to leave their spouses and move into my house with me. Paying most of the bills, my actions had thrown off their plans. Charlene wanted to call it off, fearing I'd do something drastic. Her lover dismissed it, but she worried about the fallout, especially since he worked for the county. She said I should take a month to think things over while she worked. On repairing things with her husband, I decided to use that month to finalize my plans. I set up a meeting with Fred, the county commission chairman, to discuss moving my business. I told him Hanover County had better incentives, which worried him. He didn't want to lose 89 jobs in his district, especially during an election year. I told him I was having trouble with zoning and permits and needed his help. Then I dropped the bomb. Your zoning manager is sleeping with my wife, and I know Fred looked deflated, knowing the scandal would be mess. I had video and audio of his behavior with Charlene. I told him what I wanted, his resignation and my remodeling plans approved without interference. Fred agreed, saying he'd look into it, and I told him I'd wait until after the election before taking further action. Our relationship was permanently changed from now on, he dread. Whenever I asked to see him, another relationship ruined because of Charlie. The seminar happened, and I had the contractor handle the paperwork. Construction started the next day. Charlie seemed indifferent, likely preoccupied with other concerns. She tried to patch things up, telling me she was bored, felt unattractive, and was lonely with the kids growing up. She apologized, claiming she just made a mistake with someone who took advantage of her vulnerability. I responded, what happens when the girls leave for college? And you're bored again? You could have found purpose, volunteered, joined a book club, or worked instead. You chose to cheat. How's that working out? I told her I wouldn't touch her. Our marriage was on life support and inevitable to fail. She ran out of the room crying. In the following weeks, Charlie acted like the perfect wife and mother. We even took a family trip to Disney. But things soured when we went to bed. I rented a room with separate beds, making it clear we wouldn't share. She hinted at divorce, and when I handed her the separation papers, I knew a confrontation was coming. I picked up the girls early from school and took them to the park. They figured something was wrong, but didn't know who was at fault. I gently told them I was moving out. They cried and begged me to stay. I reassured them that I wasn't going far and showed them the new apartment I'd set up in the basement. It wasn't as nice as their rooms, but it would always be there for them. They were excited to decorate it when we got home. Charlie was livid, screaming at me. The neighbors called the police. I stayed outside showing the officer the divorce papers and explaining the situation. I mentioned infidelity but didn't go into details. Charlie lashed out, but I kept my cool. The officer wisely asked her to stay outside while I showed him the apartment. When we opened the girls' room door, they were crying on the bed. I comforted them, assuring them their mother was just upset, but would calm down. The officer nodded and told the girls their mom was feeling better afterward. The officer told me I did the right thing for the kids and advised me to always put them first when we returned. Charlie had calmed down and claimed her outburst was because of how much she loved me. The officer reiterated the importance of putting the children's well-being first and wished us both. Luck Charlie waved at the officer as she left, then turned to me and hissed, "Living room." Now she stormed inside and I took the chance to lock myself in the house, putting deadbolts and latches on both doors. The new lower door was soundproof so her screams wouldn't reach me. The girls stayed with me until bedtime, and I reassured them that their mom was fine. Before they returned, I called Charlie and said, "How you treat the girls now could affect your relationship with them. Later think about it." I hung up, and the night went smoothly. Charlie hired a lawyer and we met in court. The judge, a tired woman in her 40s, asked why I filed for divorce. I explained that Charlie had been having an affair for 9 months, and when I found out, she refused to end it. I also mentioned that I couldn't expose our daughters to this lifestyle. I had video and audio evidence legally obtained to support my claims. The judge turned to Charlie, who hung her head. "You're going to need to make some decisions. Mrs. Sirs," she said, "if you want to save your marriage, reflect on your actions for now. This is just a trial separation. You have 90 days to decide whether to reconcile or file for divorce after the hearing." Charlie and I exchanged a few words in the parking lot. She said she felt sadness, not just anger. "I always thought we'd part holding hands," she said, "but now I know that won't happen for the next 3 weeks we live." Jack's story is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Through heartbreak and betrayal, he proved that integrity and courage could overcome even the darkest challenges. By focusing on his daughters and planning strategically, Jack turned a seemingly hopeless situation into an opportunity to rebuild his life on his terms. As Charlene's carefully crafted facade crumbled, Jack emerged stronger and more determined than ever. What would you do in Jack's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more incredible stories of resilience and justice. Until next time, stay strong and true to yourself.